So welcome everyone to today's session with Code with Sally. The session run every Thursday at 12 p.m. Today is a bit different. We wanted to have a session where we can answer questions related to any topic you have or previous sessions as well. So before starting, if you go to YouTube, Code with Sally channel, it will be great if you follow and subscribe the channel. So if we have any new videos, you can get notified and you can watch them. We are working on the intermediate series. So if you missed any of the previous videos, please go ahead because we'll continue this topic next week. Okay, there is a question here if we can do an example of a database rollback. Let's try to do it together in developer console. For anyone who doesn't know database rollback, so database rollback is mainly when you want to have multiple records either to be created or inserted together. And you can have, let's say, an account and you are creating multiple contacts. What if the account succeed, first contact succeed, but the second contact failed to be inserted? It's a decision whenever you're working with multiple records or a hierarchy of records, or it doesn't have to be hierarchy. Like if you have a transaction where it will create an opportunity and a case and product record, they may be related and they may be unrelated, but you have to make a decision when you are working with multiple records, whether hierarchy or not. In case of an error, do you want to roll back when there is an error, or you want to whatever succeeded and whatever failed, let it be that it didn't get created? So let's try an example together here. I will open the developer console and I will try a simple example. So I will create, let's say, an account. Okay. And I will say here, new account. And I'll give it a name, test roll back 1. So I'm testing creating an account and then insert account object. Then I can do here, for example, contact object 1 equal new contact, and I'll give it the first name, Sally, last name, Ego, and I will give it account ID equal account object dot ID. And I will insert this one. Usually when we want to create multiple contacts, we will create them all together in a list and insert it. Just for the demonstration now, I will do multiple contacts, but on different steps. And I will remove here the account, like the first name and last name. And I will try to insert the second one. If we think about this code when it will run, what will happen? Account will be created, no issues. Then the first contact, when we will try to create it with the first name and last name, it will be created as well. There should be no issues because I provided, I remember in this org, we created at some point like a restriction in a trigger that we have to have the first name and the last name is required. So will be inserted, no issues. What will happen is when we come to contact 2 in line 8 to run, this one will fail and it will give us an exception. What will happen then? If we look for account test rollback 1, will find the account and will find the contact that got created. The only one that got failed is the second contact. Let's try it together. Here we got the exception as we expected, and the exception is line 8, and it failed because the first name is required. So line 8 is the one that failed. So this line. Okay, let's see now. If I go to the org, will I see test rollback 1? Let's see. Sometimes the index takes some time. Oh, and I will search for it. It did roll back. It shouldn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, my bad. It rolled back because we don't have a try and catch. And if you remember when we discussed together in the try and catch section, Salesforce, when you don't have a try and catch and you try the code that we just ran together, because an exception happened and you don't have a try and catch, Salesforce rolled back everything for us on our behalf. So to simulate it first, let's try to do a try. And I put everything in our try statement, and I'll do a catch because it's unhandled exception and we don't have a try and catch. So I will try here and I will do system.debug ex.getMessage. So now I moved from unhandled exception to be handled, and that's where Salesforce will say, okay, now you are handling the exception. I don't have to interfere with what you want to do, and I'm not going to do the rollback on your behalf. So let's try it again. And now we didn't get the unhandled exception. We got the exception in the catch statement as we expected. Now, if I search for this account, it got created, no rollback happened, and I have the contact that we just created, Sally El Gould. It got created and it's related to the contact. So that's first thing you have to remember. If you have unhandled exceptions and you don't have try and catch, which we discussed before, it's usually a good idea to have a try and catch and handle the exceptions the way you want. Otherwise, you will have the pop-up messages, and your code can be like if you have a UI, it can freeze. You can expose like very detailed message that you don't want to expose to an external user if you are working with Experience Cloud. So it's always good to have a try and catch and handle your exception. And the moment you have a try and catch, as we demonstrated, Salesforce won't do the rollback on your behalf. So the question is, when you have such scenarios where you have in a single transaction, you are updating multiple records, like you are waiting for a payment. When the payment is processed, like you will complete an order record and create a task for someone to follow up on this order. So you have multiple steps. The question is, do I want to proceed with all those changes regardless which one will fail? Like, do you want to set the order status to be processed or completed if the payment failed? Answer is sometimes no, and sometimes it may be yes. So if the answer is no, we have to handle the rollback and the transaction when it fails, that we do the rollback, and that's through setting a save point to work with. So how do we do the save point? We have to set a save point first. So we usually do it where you want to, like, this is the state, like when you set the save point. So it's save point, and let's name it save point here, SP. And you can do, database dot set save point. So what this one do is like it saves the status of your objects and records at the point you set the save point. So anything that happened before won't be rolled back, but anything that happened after setting the save point, it can be rolled back to when you have an issue. So the rollback, we usually and typically, like you can do it on the exception, or let's say you have an API call or something, or you do an operation, a method that you call, and it will return for you true or false, it passed or failed. If it fails, you have to do it. So you can have it in a condition based on your logic, or the most common thing that we do is that we do the rollback in the exception. So I would do here, I can do database dot roll back, and I give it which save point I want to return to. So what will happen here is, let's change this to 2, 2, and 2. What will happen here that we will try, you will try to create an account. It will be created. Then you will try to create the first contact. It will be created, no issues. Then line 10 will cause an exception. What will happen that will go to the catch, will print the error message, and then the rollback statement will be executed. So the rollback will revert any actions happened in the database or in your objects, and will return to the state where you have here in line 1 when you initialize the save point. So that means at line 1, did we have test rollback 2? The answer is no. Did we have Sally 2 and this contact created? The answer is no, because line 1 is before. So when we'll do the rollback in line 14, we return the object status where it was before anything happened and where line 1. So that means it will roll back the account and the contact. So let's try together. I'll take here this one. And now it will succeed because we have handled the exception. It will show us that which error message happened. If I try to do this one and now search for it, you won't find it that it got created. And the reason is because now, like you did the rollback in the exception. I want to show you one more question and one more scenario, and then I will take any questions you have just to make it clear. Let's say someone else said like, okay, regardless of any issues happened when we are creating the contacts, if the account got created successfully, I don't want it to be rolled back. So they can move it. We can move this one before the save point. So what will happen here? We created the account and it got successful. Then we set the save point. I'm saving now what is the status or the like the objects that I have, or like this is the where I want to return to. So the account got created before. And now the contact will be created. Contact 2 will cause an error. So we'll go to the rollback, which will take me to line 4. Anything that happened before setting the save point won't be rolled back. So in this scenario, if we run this code together and we search for test rollback, we should find the account, but we cannot find the contact created for it, because only the contact will be rolled back based on how we set up the code now. So let's execute it. And we have the error. Let's see if I can find test rollback 2. Yes, I can find test rollback 2. And the context for this account is 0. And that's because, as I mentioned, we have the account creation before the save point, but the contact was after the save point. So it was the rollback. When it happened, it rolled back the contact on. So let me see, we have a question in the chat related to the save point. In which context do you use Savepoint? So you don't not need it to save the things before, if I understood. Okay, so we use the Savepoint usually when you are working with monthly record creation or update. So if, for example, you are doing a try and catch and your function or method is just creating an account or the transaction, like when you hit a button, it will create your account. So you're dealing with a single record here, whether update or delete or insert, then you don't need to have a rollback because you are working with single record. And if the update fails, it fails. Like there is nothing else to roll back because the operation you're trying to do will be rolled back anyway or not executed because it failed. But usually you use rollback or the set save point when we are working with multiple records. Like as we have here, we have the account, we have contact, we have second contact, we can create tasks as well. And that's a question you have to ask yourself and the team you are working with. In case of the contact failure, do we want to roll back the account? Or if the account succeeded, we want to keep it. If the answer you want to keep it, then you cannot have the save point before the account creation. It has to be after, and you may have another try and catch for the account creation. You can separate them, one to create the try and catch to create the account, and another one for the context with the save point. If the answer no, I don't want anything of the updates I'm doing to go through if single record failed, then you may need to do a save point and have the account after the save point. So in case of a failure, you roll back everything, account and contact and everything. And to be more clear, we come to use the save point and the rollback mainly when you are working with multiple records. If like your logic is updating multiple records or inserting a record and updating other and deleting a third one. So it become handy or critical when when you hit a button or your method is dealing with multiple records and multiple operation and you want to control that if like you have 9 records or 9 operation to do, and from 1 to 8 they succeeded, but the ninth step failed. Do you want from 1 to 8 to pass and to be persistent? And like when you open Salesforce, you see the changes and the records created, or you want to roll back because you want either from 1 to 9 to pass or none. So that's the question. Like if you answer to it like, okay, yes, I want either all pass or all fail, and have nothing. If step 9 fail, I want to roll back everything, then you have to have a save point. And you have to be mindful where you will be putting your save point and how you are having your try and catch to control the behavior you want. No, Hilde, like we are not using the save point and rollback to avoid the limits. It's to control how you want to control the creation and update and the logic you have in your code. Like in this example, in real life, you may have accounts created, account created, then context, then you want to create a task or to take, let's say, a payment first, or create an account and create a payment for this account and then create the contacts. Or let's assume as well, not that, like to mimic what I was saying from step 1 to 9, you have a form and the user fill their account name, contacts, and then you process the payment. And in the form, they enter the details for the account and 2 contacts, primary and secondary contact that they need, and then they do the payment. Let's say the payment provider is failing or give you timeout. The API, the payment that didn't go through or it's not working. So it's maybe the last step, or because you cannot have um, DML statements before a HTTP callout, and you have it here. And let's say the payment will return for you true or false, and you don't want to proceed. You can have an if and else, but sometimes again, not to confuse you. So you have multiple records that you are creating and dealing with. I was working on a project where we needed to create an account, and then we created a quote and quote line item, and then we created, account, product, quote line items. So we were dealing in the same transaction in same method with multiple objects. We had 4 objects we are working with. Let's say I created the account and the product, but the quote and quote line item will fail. In that case, I don't want to keep the account and the product because the quote operation failed. So in that case, I will be creating a save point and do the rollback in the exception to roll back the account and the product for me. And sometimes the decision may be, okay, roll back the account, but keep the product. So I may have the product before the save point, but the account, quote, and quote line items after the save point. So when I roll back, if anything happened, I roll back the 3 accounts only. So you don't use it to avoid limits. You are using it to control what happens in case of an exception, in case of mainly an exception. Like you can have an if and else statements, you can execute the rollback somewhere else. It doesn't have in the catch, but the most common use that we use the rollback is usually in the exception. So in case of exception, what do you want to do? Do you want me to keep whatever succeeded and whatever I created so far, updated so far, or you want me to go to the old state of the records before the exception or before this transaction altogether? Conrad, yes?
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. And now I'm trying to relate this Apex environment to my previous experience, which had to do with CICS DB2 COBOL mainframe development. Now, for our standard Fortune 500 company, you have millions of transactions. Each work unit, like you described, may have multiple steps, but our standard that we were responsible for, and it had to go through code review, was that your sync point or your save point, the reason being that out of all the million transactions or records being processed in your system, that if there was a failure, like you lost a hard disk or something, that each process would lose no more than 100 records. So that your recovery, maybe a few hours as opposed to a few days if you let all kinds of records get lost. So my question is, in the Apex environment now, and we talk about batching or scheduling transactions, but in the example you're talking about, having what we call a work unit that has multiple steps, is it common to have like a limit that you have to manage for your save points, or is that just a different environment I don't need to worry about?
I'm not really following. What do you mean by limit for the save point? Like how many save points you will have?
No, how many records you would save during uh, while you're managing your save point. So you start a save point, you put in a save point,
Mm-hmm.
then you update whatever your process is. When you hit the maximum limit of, well, it's a limit you put in there, but when you've updated 100 records, you take another save point.
Oh, okay. No, we don't have this. What we have, as far as my knowledge, but what we will have to be careful with is like how many the governor limits we have in general, like not to hit those limits. That's something we have to be mindful of when we are working with Apex. But in Salesforce, I didn't come across any limitation with the database rollback that I have to be careful with, other than where you will set the save point. And if we open quickly here, uh, Apex. So I don't think they will say anything about like here, for example, they tell you like this the rollback and set save point doesn't count against your DML limit, which is the governor limits. But
Right. No.
that's the thing that I know. But I don't think
So you had showed the you just showed the governor limits. What page were you showing there?
yeah, here.
Okay, and then it says total number of records processed as a result of DML statement. So it's saying 10,000. So when so if you're in a Fortune 500 company, and whether it's stocks, could be your utility company payment,
Hmm.
you have you may have millions of people trying to buy a stock, and all those steps have to whatever the steps are to buy a stock, they have to be completed in full. So if you have a system failure, what I'm asking about is
For each client when they are buying the stock and it has multiple steps, each
yeah,
client is a transaction on its own. So
correct. So
so
now,
each transaction means it can have multiple steps as we have here. It's one per client. So if the client's step one and two worked, but the system went down before step three, it will do the rollback and roll back everything for them for
right,
this client.
right, correct. So what I'm asking about is take all those transactions in total, because if you have a system failure, you're going to have to recover it. So the point being, let's just take you have three steps here for your work unit. So there's three steps.
Hmm.
So if you have 1,000 uh, people making an order, so that's 1,000 times three, so that's 3,000. So then if you have a failure, there's 3,000, there's 1,000 people who've lost their transaction.
It didn't lose their transaction. In case of Salesforce, if they are, let's be like, I will give you another example. So if they are working only with Salesforce, so they didn't lose the transaction, like their transactions, because it didn't happen. It will fail and it will give us, it will give them an error. But let's
Well,
assume they have two systems and we have the transactions happening in system A and it went through, but we are updating Salesforce with those changes in a way or another and Salesforce is down or something, and or the connection between Salesforce and System A is failing for 20 minutes. So we lost those transactions to be pulled from System A to Salesforce. In that case, you need to have a something in place in your system to get you the details that you lost from system A or the updates that you lost from system A to come to your to Salesforce. And I have something similar in the current project I'm working with. And for that reason, we have a batch job and we schedule it to run, let's say, once every week or once every day at night to see if there is any failures or any like connection happened, like issues happened during the connection, and we get the latest of those records at night in a batch. And why I'm saying batch, because we are talking about, we don't know the volume and we don't know how many records. So batch, and that's something we'll learn next session. Batch, it will chunk the records into smaller batches to work on them. So in my case, we have this scheduled batch job to run to get me the updates from another system back to Salesforce in case of like any, the API is not stable, the other system was down, like the connection between it and between Salesforce, like for any reason. So if you have something similar, you'll need to rely on a batch job to do um, the missing updates or something like, or if like someone will, the other system when it's up will feed into a custom object. Those are the records that I failed to update. Please go ahead whenever you can to update them one by one. It can be something like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. And I want to show you guys something as well, like to make it like also all connected, like it's not related to set SafePoint or the rollback specifically, but something that we learned about before, and I want just to refresh your memory. So let's say here we saw together that contact one succeeded, but contact two failed to be inserted, and that caused to have an exception and to catch it and to do the rollback. In real life, as I said, we won't have this. Like we'll have a list of contact and list of contacts equal new list of contact. And I will be inserting this one. I put here list of contacts dot add, and I will put contact object one. And then I put here dot add contact object two. So I added the two of them in a list, and then I can insert this list all together. This will behave the same. And if I do here 3, 3, 3, this what will happen is that it will try to insert the list of contacts and it will fail. The exception will happen and will roll back everything. Here, let me take this one and I will execute it. The error happened. Yes, we have here an exception. It says like the first row failed to be inserted. If I try to do the test rollback 3, it's not created. In real life as well, sometimes you would be in a situation where, okay, I don't want to necessarily like roll back when one of the contacts fail. And I want to do it in a list. What we can do is instead of insert, I can use database.insert and I give it the list of contacts and it takes another parameter. Do you want everything to everything to be inserted? And if not, in one fail to throw an exception or fail it? Or do you want if some succeeded, let it be, and some failed, I don't mind. In that case, if you don't care much and you don't want to stop everything from running, you can do like this database.insert instead, and it will return for you a save result. And we saw together before in one of the sessions, like we looped, I will get the code for it. So I don't write it all together. And you can look through the results that got back for you. And if it's not successful, it will like for the first record, contact one, it will be successful. For contact two, it will be not successful. You can show and debug the errors for it. So
Okay,
let's,
so this is what I get lost. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the question that arises in my mind, since you've done the database dot, uh, in this case, save result. So at any time, do you as the developer have to manage the quantity of rows that are being modified, or is it going to be limited by the governor?
it's always the governor limits. The only thing that we did here, or it's different, is that in real life, you won't be creating contact by contact. If you have more than one contact to be inserted, you do it in a list. So we chose, instead of using insert contacts or a list of contacts, because insert of contacts, as we saw and we just tried together, if one of them failed, you don't have a way to tell the insert, it's okay. I'm okay if one of the contacts fail. I'm happy to proceed and continue and insert whatever you can. And that sometimes is useful when, for example, you have a CSV file and the user uploaded for you in a UI and you want to insert it. You are not 100% sure that all the records of a CSV file will be valid to be inserted in your object. And you want to insert what can be inserted and you want to show the user, yeah, you have row 2 and row 6 were not created, but all the rest were created. You don't want to fail everything because there is 2 records that are not correct. You don't have a way to tell Salesforce, if you are using the insert, that you want this behavior. If you want this behavior to happen, you have to have something like this, like to use the database.insert, and you will find database.insert Apex. If you open the database class, there is, let's go, you will find one for the insert, one for the update, one for the absurd, everything. And here, what it takes like the records that you want to insert. And the second parameter that we passed as a false is all or none. Do you want all or none? If the answer is false, that means you are happy to proceed with whatever is successful. Don't stop it. If you have all or none is true, that means it will behave the same way as the insert list of contacts. So let's see it together now. Like, will that, like, this one will be created. We'll create the list. The first one is valid. The second one is not valid. We'll try to insert the list with all or none false. So it will succeed the first contact, the second contact will fail, and this is where we'll see the error message for it like printed, but we won't cause a rollback. Again, if you wanted to force you, like, I don't see a reason why you will have all or none set to false, or use database.insert and then have a specific if statement to do the rollback, because maybe, let's say you want to roll back everything and stop it if there is more than 2 failures. So maybe you want to have a counter that counts like how many failed. And after, like based on the counter, if it's counter more than 2, roll back everything. Maybe something like that. But most probably, like, you won't need to roll back if you're using all or none. Otherwise, you'll be using the insert instead. Let's try to run this and see if really, like, will we get the exception or we'll get the error, and we will still get the account and the contact. And that's what we are expecting. So let's go here. And here we said inserted record, which record got inserted, and the second record that got failed. Because here we went like one of them was was successful, so it went for the else, and it told me which record got inserted. And for the one that got failed, it gave me the error message. First name is required. Give me the error message. So that means if I go and search for test rollback 3, I will have the record and I have the contact created. So it's just to give you an idea. Again, it's not 100% related to the rollback because the rollback is just about the set save point where you will set it, and calling it to do the rollback will be through the rollback. Again, you don't have to have the database.rollback only in the exception. You may have a condition in a way or another where you want to enforce rollbacking everything. But in like 99.9 of the projects I work with, it's mainly we do the rollback in the exception. You have to be mindful where you will put the set save point. But it's good thing to refresh. Again, we covered before, but I wanted to refresh that database.insert have a benefit over the insert directly, that you have the all or none flag that you can use. And we said like as well, like it's not just for the insert, like you will have it for upsert. And you will have here all or none. You will have it for the update. Um,
So, there's, when you do I guess I may misunderstand SafePoint, but so when you do a SafePoint, is it just taking a snapshot or status of where the data is, or is it actually doing a commit to the database?
And as far as I understand, when you go to the set save point, as if it takes a snapshot of the current status of the records and what you have in the transaction. So at this point, when I set the save point, no accounts was created, no contacts were created. If I want to, like, that means anything that will happen after the save point will be rolled back, and we can check the documentation if it has like a better the save point.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is if you do an insert before the SafePoint, is that committed?
It is committed, and that's what we tried together when we moved the account before the set save
Oh,
point.
yes, yes, okay,
If you remember, yeah, when we
yeah.
did that and we did the exception and we had the rollback, we found the account got created because that one got inserted and committed already to Salesforce before the set save point. So when you do the rollback, it's not included with the rollback. So you have to be mindful where you would put your set save point, and like the behavior, it's all in your hands. Like if you want, regardless of any exception that will happen in context, and you have payment and you have tasks and you have other steps, regardless of that, I want, if the account got succeeded and passed, I don't want it to be rolled back. You may find yourself in your code putting another try and catch here and having your account before. So it just, there is no like steps for you to follow or where to do it or how to do it. I'm just explaining to you how it will work. And it's up to you and your team and the requirement and the use case you have to know where to put the set save point. If you know that anything after the set save point will be rolled back, then you will know that account contacts anything when the rollback will be called will be rolled back. If you don't want to roll back at all, then don't do the set save point. If you have requirement that regardless, I want the account to stay, then don't have the account after the set save point. So you know how things are working, and based on the use case and the requirements you have, you will make your own decision.
You have to anticipate. Use it for if something go wrong.
Yes, for sure. It's
Okay.
mainly there when we do the try and catch, as I said. And we started this, the first scenario we had when we started, we didn't have any try and catch. So when the error happened, it was unhandled. and we said like Salesforce, when there is no try and catch and it's unhandled error, it do the rollback for you, and it roll back everything, account contacts and everything. And when we search for the account, we couldn't find it. But the moment you put a try and catch, Salesforce like assume you are taking care of the transaction and the rollback and save point and how you want to roll back your records. So once we had the try and catch, it didn't roll back automatically the records for us. So when to use it, it can be whenever there is an error, or if, for example, you have any specific condition you want to force the rollback, it can be used like here if and you have something and you do the rollback here. Nothing will stop you from doing that. But it mainly in 99.9 projects I work with, we use it mainly as a save point, like, or as a backup whenever there is an exception, we go back. But it can be used in a different way, depends on your code, but mainly we do it, yes, whenever there is an exception and I don't want to have orphan record or records that I don't need because not everything got created correctly. I want to roll back and I don't want them to keep as committed records. Make sense?
So we use the rollback, the save point, when we put exception, just in case, if understood.
Yes, yes, mainly. You
Okay.
can think about it like that. And if you wanted to use it differently, it's really up to you. But that's mainly the use case. Yes. When you have a try
Okay.
and catch and you want to control, if you want to roll back all your records, if there is an exception or some of your records, as we saw together, it will depend on where you're putting your save point. If we move the account first before the save point, an exception happened, the rollback will impact only the context, not the account and context as we have now. So it depends on where and how you are setting your save point, how it will behave. But yes, to answer your question, mainly it's used when we have a try and catch and we have to control what will happen when there is an exception.
Now I begin to understand a little more.
Yeah. Okay, great. If you watch again or you try it yourself, you can try the same code we tried. And you have any questions, let me know on Slack or LinkedIn, and I will be happy to help you. It's very important to understand it well. But try it and let me know. And hopefully the session was useful for you today, and I will see you next Thursday. Thank you so much.